Oh my God, what the heck am I doing? Hey guys, what's going on? Let me actually get this, because we're totally prepared. It was my fault. Jen was waiting. I apologize, Jen.
No problemo. I just did the dishes and made some food, and I'm still working on a diagram, to be honest. I've basically gone back to my old way of doing things, which I know weirded out my coworkers, because like I wouldn't finish a case for a real long time, then I'd finish 2 cases on the same day, multiple times. So I've transitioned into doing that same basic approach to like diagrams out. You're like 3 diagrams open. None of them are finished. And one of them I've been working on for a week now. It's like, great. Anyway, we're going to talk about time. And every time I've gone to talk about time, it's been a complete train wreck, because people are stuck in their view of time. So do you mind if I just give like a little lecture, or did you want to do an opening?
By all means, time. How does it even work?
Well, whatever it is we think about time, if we've never really given it any thought, is not the probability of that being the correct understanding is actually itself like contradicted by how physics really works. Because essentially there's a always going to be something along the lines of a DCT, cosine transform. More generally, think of it as a Fourier transform. Something like a Fourier transform is going on anytime your body's doing any type of conversion of a signal, right? Like
What's
the fact of having
is that what a DCT is? A signal conversion?
Well, DCT is a discrete cosine transform, which is a particular type of Fourier transform most often used in image processing. It's like the most familiar.
It's when it takes something like this and makes it go like kind of like that.
Well, the idea is that you're transforming the x coordinate or the independent coordinate to a different basis. So like time versus frequency is the most common one. So it never looks the same. Like, is there a function that's equal to its own Fourier transform? Is that defined?
I don't. Wouldn't that mean it would equal like 1?
Well, I actually don't know the answer, and I kind of feel like I've gone out on a limb here asking a question I didn't know the answer to, but it was
extremely bold statement. No, this is the thing, because it's like I don't know, but when I just go within the valence of all these different communities, I'm like, well, very often, if you want to know if you're right, it's either 1 or 0. Not always, but a lot of times it's 1. Which brings up metaphysics as well, but I mean that we could say that for another show.
Well, it does have to do with metaphysics. Everything has to do with metaphysics, but nobody knows what metaphysics means, right? So that's why I haven't brought this word up.
It makes me uncomfortable, but it makes me believe in God more.
Well, you're welcome.
It feels like my mind is leaving in like some sort of like a reverse conical, perhaps some may say vortice.
Do you know who Arval is?
No.
He's another YouTuber who talks about various topics in philosophy, but recently he actually did like what I describe as a Platonic dialogue. And we talked a little bit, and he talked to me about a very interesting thing, which I realized was actually like the perfect metaphor for why time is never going, your conception of time is never going to be correct on your first contemplation of it. And it's something called indiscernibles.
I think Professor Wolfram kind of calls it like computational irreducibility. It's like
that's something completely different. No.
Okay. Is it within a similar group?
Or? Well, I can tell you what irreducibility means. That it's basically a synonym for quantum. So what is the irreducible complexity are the quantum attributes.
There's so much stuff here. Oh my God.
Well, the basic idea.
Well, at least according to Wikipedia, it looks very important.
I know, but it's a very important thing because it's a very fundamental thing. So the idea of a Fourier transform in and of itself is very fundamental and simple. It's going from one basis to another in order to have the information. So you're conserving information to whatever point you agree to conserve the information, because you're often looking at a confidence interval. It's like, do you know what epsilon delta is?
That would be the
You
relation
don't
between
need
two waveforms, I think.
you
Or
don't
is
need
that
a
Euler's
series to
number
converge.
and
No.
something else?
You don't need a series to converge on its approximation. Absolutely. You want, because that would require infinity computations, right? We're not looking to make infinity computations. We're looking to converge to an acceptable approximation in a short time.
You want to be smooth.
No, it's about an accuracy of an approximation.
Right. We if we can't know exactly, then we can
So
kind of have like a smooth curve.
how many terms, to get the perfect approximation, how many terms of the Fourier series would we have to approximate?
I have no idea.
Infinity.
That makes sense.
Infinity, because it's an infinite transform, right? But the
Right.
plan is that is not what we want to do, is it? Why? Finite
We're not here
computational
forever.
power. We have finite computational power. We have only so many flops on a computer, basically. So the idea is that the Fourier transform is great, not because it's infinite, but because it converges to 99.999% of what it is at infinity at like a super low number of terms. The majority of the information in the Fourier transform is crammed into the first few terms. That's the beauty of it.
That's very interesting. It sounds like
And
a math
also the
logger
beauty
video
of it-
I was going.
The other beauty of it is that you can make sometimes perfect transforms that are also in a formulaic expression. So like you can simplify them down, because there's the is it the Euler identity, the sine plus I sine equals e to the I? You know what I mean?
You're going into the
relation.
complex plane. I remember listening to something like that. I would need to bring it up.
If you could actually reshare that thing with the identity of indiscernibles, I will now talk about why time is so hard to understand with a metaphor. For those of you who are interested, metaphors are actually an acceptable way of teaching
Is
knowledge.
it something? Okay, because I think this is going over like the logarithms and stuff, and then he gets
This
the
is
Euler.
this is not logarithms.
Okay, this
Logarithms
isn't.
is another example of something that we have a natural innate affinity for. Like, are we linear or are we logarithmic in our perception? And it's probably more so a logarithmic thing. Like it's probably honestly something else entirely. Like it's hint, it's quantized, but we have these approximations that get better and better. Like the quantized one is like the advited.
Results
Well, I
particularly
can hear,
memorable for me
hear
is
voices.
that
I just remember they always brought up Euler.
This homework assignment.
That's what made me go to it. So and go back to the other thing. I apologize.
Like I still haven't started my metaphor, so it's concerning that there's been 2 interruptions so far, but it's okay. You're a special guy, and we all see it. You have a very open mind, which has a very good side and a somewhat patchy side. But we love you. Don't we love memes of destruction, everybody?
Is it terrifying that I've been told things like that often in my life? At least I'm being consistent.
That's a good thing, and that's called synchronicity.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it's all signs, right? Like a sign in and of itself, it sort of depends what tradition you're from, what signs mean. So it's a big old complicated thing. But let's go back to this thing with time. So it's like time is a thing. Time is actually complicated. It's more than one thing at once, which we're sort of not really we have a bit of a tough time with stuff. Multiple things true at the same time that sound like they might be different things. Like you ever have these combos with people where people are like, well, is it this or this? Is it A or B? Which is it? It's got to be one or the other. And it's like, it's not even clear that they're contradictory statements, but people still want to like pigeonhole you into that binary. So anyway.
This is why I love Duvid. No. This is the thing. I'm not into everything he's into, but some of the things he's into, like, dude, like composite materials and stuff. Dude, I love that. I'm not so much into chess. I like, actually, his coverage of chess. I'm like, there should be like an ESP. He's like an ESPN commentator. And like, he actually, like, the way he goes into it, I'm like, it's like listening to a soccer match. It's like listening to a baseball game. He's naturally into it. He understands the moves and he does it in an entertaining
fashion.
Another thing
I realized is that his like unwillingness to laugh at basically anything has caused me to become like exponentially funnier. because I'm trying so
he's a
desperately
great
hard
straight
to be
man.
funny right now.
And well, he's Orthodox, he's Jewish and everything. I may have just made one of those up. I apologize, stupid. But it's like, no, he's a holy man. He practices. He chants. Maybe I'm not so much into the chants. I realize I'm a terrible Jew. I'm Jewish on the wrong side. But these things happen. Nobody's perfect.
Time is something we are designed to think about in a certain way. And when I was talking to Arbol, he talked to me about this identity of indiscernibles thing, which I'd never heard of. I've stayed out of philosophy because anyone who knows me knows that if I'm basically like a machine that's like zeroes into errors and just like stomps them. But so it's like I just won't learn about those errors quite yet because I'm not quite ready to stomp them. But now that my whole thing's been put into place, like it's time now. But anyway, yeah, that's just kidding. That's just kidding. Yeah. So he brought this up, and I realized that the fractal kind of BTFOs this notion. So, is a fractal different from its generating function? There's no good answer to this, but you got to think about it.
I actually, unfortunately, I don't think I have to think about this just because as soon as you just said that, within probably the past day and a half, a number of my more recommended YouTube videos have been on fractals and just like fractal space and expansions. And I'm just sitting there. I'm just like, I haven't really clicked on them as much yet, but I'm just like
virgin, psycho, Chad, schizo situation here or something. Sorry. Go on.
I just really think I think we're at a convergence. No, I tend to think you're right. Whatever you're saying, again, I am biased to this. I'm totally biased to this just because like I see myself being nudged in ways, and I'm like, all right, I've heard these different things. How are these models lining up? And I'm just like,
spirits, isn't
I think we're getting there.
The spirits are giving you signs, aren't they? And you're like, oh no, not again. Remember, it's the law of threes. Law of threes. If it happens 3 times within a small enough interval, it's a sign, and then it's considered offensive to ignore it. Not too bad. They'll just ignore you if you ignore them, right?
It's all based on triangulation.
Among other things. So indiscernible. So the question is a fractal indiscernible from its generating function? What's the answer?
No.
It's always the same answer. It depends on metaphysics. What aspect of metaphysics is the determination of whether the answer is yes or no? So that's where you got to go on this one. And because it's not self-evident, we won't go down that path. But the point is that he told me that's not even the point here. The point is that he told me that this is something that Leibniz used to make calculus. So it's wrong because of the fractal thing leaving the door open for it to be wrong. So the fact that there is a metaphysical ambiguity means that there is some wrongness in it, but it's still made calculus. Did it have to be wrong to make calculus? Yes. Did we have to believe something wrong about reality to be humans? Yes. And that's on the level of our understanding of time. So there's a certain level of intellectual sobriety or maturity or whatever, where you're just like, whatever my first assumption is, whatever I am presupposing tacitly, you're not going through this, in the absolute most high focused part of your direct thoughts mind. You're not even the, skeptics aren't doing that. They convince themselves that they're doing that, but actually they're quite obsessed with appeals to authority. It's just what do you recognize as authority, and just sort of, it takes a certain degree of maturity to realize that there's really not is there same standard of authority. If we had a same standard of authority in humanity, we'd have peace. So the fact that we don't have peace is indicative that we don't. To presuppose that we do is silly, and to presuppose that your estimations on time are correct, you'll go farther assuming the opposite, which is what I do. I never presupposed my understanding or impressions of time is correct. It's yeah, I got a calendar and I do it for what it needs to be done for, but that's a relational thing. That's again with the thermometer and the temperature. That's not telling us anything about what Boltzmann told us about entropy. It's just saying, well, it's hotter. It's 27 than if it's 21, right? So the metaphor for why time's hard to understand is that we're biologically designed to experience time. I don't want to say dilation, but I suppose it is an effective distortion, at least, of the temporal interval.
Humans got lag.
Each animal, like niche, I suppose is the right word, experiences the time in their own way. That's what makes the niche, is the temporal rate. So it's like, no, I know it doesn't sound good to say temporal rate because that sounds like dt, right? But what are you going to say?
No. One of the things that got me thinking about this a little bit more, because when you start talking about like consciousness and stuff like that, or what's it mean to be alive, and then it's like, and then I think about a star, and then I'm like, then I think about a particle, and I'm like, what is it going through? What are these states? What these? And I was out running, and some days when I was very tired, I would notice the way I transverse the topology I'm traversing over changes. Like the way I actually interact with the ground, depending on like its firmness, or if I'm on grass, depending on what topology I'm traversing, it's a little bit different. And at times maybe you kick out or get thrown down. There could be certain things that come up along the way. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, all right, well, if I'm just some dude that's running shirtless outside, memeing an anime
Well,
workout.
you're not some dude. You're not just some dude.
Well, we might also be. All I know is when I hear Professor Wolfram say, well, in reality, we could be relatively in like an electron. It could be our universe. And when he just says, he's like, we don't know this and everything, but some people, and he puts that out there, I'm like, it's a lot of big things. A lot of big things out there. I apologize.
It's so hilarious. Doesn't that remind you of my meme with the, what was it? The sword. I always forget the sword of the king. My Wolfram meme. You got to remember. I can just screen share it again, can I? Yes, I can. I love my meme arsenal so much. It is my greatest weapons arsenal of all my lifetimes. Zing! Sing! Oh my gosh. Okay. You gotta do. Look at this. Look, do you see what I put here? You know what that is?
Yeah. Explains a lot. It explains a lot. You just see.
Wait, what's that movie with the like Stargate, and they're like, we don't know what this technology is we discovered. It's like, oh my god! And Wolfram's just the guy looking over the. He's looking into the thing.
The beautiful thing is, all I know is if AI was to ever just completely take over, if it was an AI Stephen Wolfram, I think the world will be all right, because I think he's at least got, as from what I've seen, a balance. He could have made a lot of money selling out, but he enjoys solving problems and building tools. And I see it basically in my mind, he's like that great dwarven king from like The Hobbit or something, like not the one that necessarily goes crazy with power and everything, but he's building these great forges and everything.
Metaphor right now. Did you not just say?
I think I already applied to be Stephen Wolfram's assistant, and I may have already made the Hogwarts metaphor.
So you've been accepted to.
Oh no! I told him to hire somebody more qualified, because it's a really. Basically, I'm just like, what would I like to do with my life? It's like, oh, I could totally be like, if he was Dumbledore, I'd totally be Harry Potter. Then I thought for a second, I'm like, no, he's already got Jonathan. Jonathan, duh. I mean, he's already English, so of course he's going to be Harry Potter. And I'm like, well, I have a bit of a ginger beard, so I guess I could be the Ron Weasley. I would settle for being a Ron Weasley. I like Ron.
So I can keep talking about time, because did what I say make sense with the us sucking at time and perceiving it, or us perceiving time in a certain way and then therefore sucking at understanding it in an absolute sense?
Well, I mean, we basically adapted here on Earth.
Well, basically that the metaphor is that calculus only works because the metaphysics are slightly wrong, and we only believe the things we believe.
Is that why we can't finish
our metaphysics are slightly wrong because we're a machine. Like a computer is a machine that only works if you plug it in. We're a machine that only works if there's. So that means we're deviated from the 0-point energy. So to perceive time accurately would be to be able to perceive the 0-point energy, but we are built up from the 0-point energy. We aren't it anymore. We're 0-point energy adjacent. So we have this resonance perception of time, which isn't the actual real time, because that would imply we had no subjectivity if we were perceiving time on the level in which it actually exists.
Is that why it's all a wave function? because otherwise
No,
it wouldn't
I mean
work.
maybe.
Oh.
To me, what you're saying has no connection to what I just said. So I guess the answer is maybe.
All I know is no. I thought of this for a while. I'm like, in order for us to experience the way it is, it's like you would need to have at least a little bit of just something in one direction or another. You need to go in a particular direction, and it's a tiny little amount down the line that it can do a lot.
Well, all I'm saying is that you shouldn't presuppose that your tacit impressions of time are correct, and it indeed would be more wise to presume that they were incorrect in a manner that you had no means to establish, because that would be more realistic. Because eventually you can understand time more accurately, right? Like with what Thad's doing and everything. That's because what that's doing, which is coming to the point of where the metaphysics comes in, is that like the answer is qualified non-dualism. So like I don't know how much you know about the Indian metaphysical schools. Probably nothing. There's non-dualism, there's dualism, and there's qualified non-dualism. So the first two sort of just don't really work. The first one doesn't work because there's no qualifiers, and then there's no like distinctions, and then the second one doesn't work is because in the universe there are no distinctions. There are no actual distinctions. Okay, what I said here. All duality is temporary, is illusory, which is what it would be. Maya would be the technical term. So dualism is something we impose. It's something that is temporary, and a lot of dualism we impose it, and some of the dualism the universe imposes it, but it's all imposed in a non-permanent way. The permanent thing is non-dualism, and dualism is varying degrees of impermanence. So if something lasts 1,000,000 years versus 1 year, the thing that's 1,000,000 years lasting has more permanence than the 1 year, but it's not permanent. Do you understand? So there's a hierarchy of permanence. So there's a hierarchy that makes sense to rank observables. And that's the one that actually lines up with what's real. So coming back to temporality, is time truly the first cause? Is time that which causes everything? Do you know the answer? No, you don't.
That wasn't a yes or no question, because I'm sitting there as well in comparison to what? Because it's like, all right, I'm a human being, I'm here on Earth. It's like when I'm starting to think, it's like, is the sun alive? I sit back, I'm like, realistically, what the hell does the sun care about me and stuff? I'm like filming a little spider and something. That spider is, in comparison for me and the sun, I'm like, yeah, I actually noticed this spider. It totally caught a fly. The fly has completely been absorbed by the spider as far as I can see now. It was actually, it was nature, but all I know is sun don't care about me. It's like the earth itself, it's like, yeah, unless I'm trying to like do something horrific, which I don't really plan on doing. I'm just like, all right, the earth don't care about me and stuff like that. Okay, well, maybe she does. I mean, that would be nice. I love Earth. But no, it just relatively, it's like, all right, the sun's going to be around for another 4.5 billion years. It's like, how long do I have? I don't know, 40? It's going to be around longer. I get the gist of what you're saying. I'm good. I don't know if Jen's still here. Am I lagging? Oh, okay. All right. She's frozen. All right. So, well, she's reloading right there. What we'll do is we'll take a look at some other stuff as well. We'll go back to the Fourier transform just because I found this absolutely fascinating. All right. So we'll go back over here. All right. We'll remove this guy. Oh. That's how we do it. Yeah. No. All right. Sorry. All right. Oh. There we go. She needed to gain a different temporality. There we go. All right. Fourier transform. All right. Basically, I'm just, and even physics with Kenny Lee. Shout out to physics with Kenny Lee. He actually went over some of these things, and he actually had a little thing where it's like, all right, he has one wave that's in there, and it's got basically all those little pins. It's kind of like the little metal thing where you put your hand on it, makes your handprint. But basically, he puts it in, and it's got different levels of wave functions, and you see them basically hit different levels. They kind of just zoom in a little bit there. But when you see what's actually going on, it's like, all right, what's actually happening? Oh, it's kind of spinning. It kind of reminds me of a clock. It's almost like, I think I remember some of the early philosophers, some of the folks speaking about metaphysics. Some folks may have been scientists as well. They were kind of talking all about maybe the universe is a clock. It's just all these different things driving all these different things, but I think they had in their mind maybe gears. I don't know. Are those gear-like? Are those hyperbolic gears? Dude. Frickin' Henry
I'm
Siegerman.
fucking sorry, man.
Oh, no worries. I was going over the Fourier transformation before, so I can.
I displayed a picture of a bird statue that I made out of seashells, and that was it. And my computer was just like, that's it. You've had enough fun for one day.
Yeah, no, the birds will do that to you.
It's probably because I have several programs running. It's several diagrams.
Yeah, you only have so much computational power, which actually isn't that what you had said before. No, because I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking, no, also while running to actually, aside from get on a side tangent, I've noticed as I'm traversing the topology very often, it depends on how much energy I have physically as well as my computational ability up here. Because sometimes I can listen, like I could listen to your math things if I have had like a full 8 hours of sleep and I didn't necessarily work that day. But if I've worked that day and don't have enough sleep, it's like for me to listen to that, especially if it gets dark out, I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to think. So I have to use so much computational power that it's like, all right, I'm going to mess up or I'm going to have to slow down doing whatever I'm doing, literally even running. Because I feel like I utilize so much computational power for doing that. Whereas if I'm just sitting here, I can sit there and listen for longer.
That's awesome. So this is probably one of the most difficult teachings, is proving that time is not the prime mover in the sense of like the thing that is the, if the universe is a sailboat, the wind is time, right? So why can't that be the case? Is because the fact that time passes means energy can drop. Do you agree with that? Time is what allows delta E to be non-zero.
Well, it would transfer somewhere else because energy is conserved.
Well, there's always a loss of energy, though.
What?
Well, sure.
Wait, what?
There's always a loss of energy. That's the law of entropy. Energy.
I thought it went somewhere.
Disperses. There's a conservation of mass. There's a conservation of space-time. But
wait, did you just explain dark energy or dark matter?
I have no idea what my theory. Like the thing is,
no, because what you just said. No.
If dark matter is like, is dark matter the right way to look at it? It's like, no, the right way to look at it is in grounding being philosophically what arises, what can arise in the absence of everything else. Because when done correctly, cosmology and metaphysics and philosophy, those are all the same thing, all meant to build off each other and be synchronized. Well, it was what you said in your video with the 3 things, right? Like, why is it 3? That was a crazy good video too. But hey, LDG, did I just jump in on your stream? Because I'm really sorry, because my computer crashed and then I was streaming with memes and then I was like, crap, I gotta go back to StreamYards, and I have your StreamYard saved on my shortcuts.
I was
I keep
losing it
for
too.
Like 1 second. I didn't tell you, but I dropped it to a stream for like 1 second. I was like, shit, and I immediately dropped off. So I just want to come back to this because I felt so bad. And now he's here in the chat.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure if
I was gonna say something though.
I speak too much. I want to invite LGG up, but it's totally up to you. I will shut up because I want to see your interaction. And maybe at another point, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I just basically jumped into his stream and then jumped right off, and that's why he's here, I think, and I feel super bad about it. So that's why it's just me apologizing, I guess.
He's streaming right now.
Okay. I have his StreamYards link bookmarks. He always uses the same one, and he just told me to jump in anytime. And I thought I was going back to yours, but I went back to his by mistake. So whoopie doodle. So back to this thing. So time is what allows for light to travel, okay? And light disperses. Like there's the sun, and eventually the sun's going to burn out type thing, and that's fine type thing. So there is a dispersal of energy. So, depending on how you've defined energy, you can say it's conserved or that it's sort of going in a dispersal way. Like, do you see how in one way it's conserved and in another way it's dispersed? Because the absolute volume of the universe is always increasing.
But the what? Huh. But there's limited ether and stuff. So
There
because
is
it's
not
flowing.
limited ether. Well, yes, there is limited ether. But sorry, wait, what do you mean by limited ether? Sorry, it's just like completely not how I would
I mean,
word that. Sorry.
there's a limit, or basically, effectively, how our universe spreads out is you would have that stuff just because if you actually look at how the universe is kind of spread out, it kind of
Well, think of
kinda
it
looks
like,
that way.
those soft serve ice cream cones?
I like
Like,
those.
that's the ether's always
LDG,
been
put the link in
being
there if you want to pop
generated.
up,
The
even
the
for
uh,
just a minute.
the ether's being generated all the time. Is you got to think of it like what's happening when the sun's created. It has a potential range of velocities, and then it's reduced into one of those velocities when it's localized. So it goes from a range down to one, and it has a linear velocity. And that velocity is bent by the gravity field. And so as it's moving, it's tracing out an etheric field.
See, I mean, that
Because the
would explain a
sun
lot. Just
the
no, just
sun
'cause
has Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I listen. It's electromagnetism combined with like gravity, and just like I'm looking at it, it's like, all right, we already see the photons. It's like we're now gaining the ability to like measure gravity waves.
There aren't any waves. You have to, again, primacy, primacy, primacy,
Oh,
primacy. Okay,
oscillation.
you can't invoke words that you don't know if they exist. So that's our problem. We're just careless metaphysically. We're invoking concepts we don't know if they can be grounded or established as real. We need something that when we try to disprove it, we hit up against a brick wall. Not, oh, well, it kind of sounded good when I was super high last Saturday
The
night as
pictures from
metaphysics.
the institute look so pretty, though.
Which pictures?
It's I think not the Institute for Advanced Study, the Institute for International Physics or something like that. They have like a lot of the same people on. They were showing like these pretty things about like what LIGO measured from like this black hole, or like it or like a cleaned up visual model. I mean, it's all like audio, just normally. You just have to, I
Just because
assume, run
I
it through
disagree
Fourier
with them
transforms.
on something doesn't mean they didn't do something good.
I mean, again, I don't know if it's right, but it was pretty.
The thing they did right is they made some pictures, and that's awesome. And there you go. That's how the cookie crumbles. The end. Back to the point is no
Go.
matter how you want to frame it, you can't disprove Advaita, which is what I've simplified to saying that God's a hard solipsist, that you can't establish anything other than your own mind because everything's happening in that constraint. Then that's the trick of it all, because there's this like arising thing where there's self and mind, and those are two different perspectives on the same thing. So self is the perspective from the inside, and mind is the perspective from the outside of a spherical waveform. So you can never find yourself not in a spherical waveform, in other words. Did that make sense? No, didn't think so.
We're always in a circle or a sphere.
I'm not
A
saying
hypersphere.
that we are in the mind of God, whatever that may mean. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we can't disprove it. So, inability to disprove something versus ability to prove. Do you understand how those are two different standards?
Right.
So, inability to disprove, I call that unfalsifiable, which makes a bunch of people screech and they don't like it. But I think we just need to embrace it, because unfalsifiable means unable to be proven false, aka true. So there's no
But
energy.
that's not necessary. See, I used to always believe that because I felt like it was a convenient excuse. It's like, you can't disprove me. And then I'm like, well, if you actually had the ability to disprove, or at least we're able to set up a model.
There's a stronger standard.
Right.
You don't want to promote the soft truths. What you want to do is not deny the soft truths, because as you can see, a lot of people want to deny the soft truths, or like with T-Jump and the universe isn't conscious. It's like, how could you possibly know that, Socrates, right? It's like, this is Socratic. This is why Socratic method doesn't work, because you conclude these negative things you couldn't possibly, you accept
The things tend to
tacit
come full
axioms.
circle. Oh.
But your intuitions are largely correct. You don't really, there's not much you can do. Like, they're largely tautologies. The unfalsifiables are largely tautologies. So what you want to do is, by asserting reasonable unfalsifiables, aka axioms, very, very easily defensible axioms, using those, you can then make positive proofs, because you can disprove things that contradict the axioms and use the axioms in reasonable assumptions to build up chains of sequences of invariability. I don't know if I actually sent you my diagram, but I did attempt to like map out Arval's argument, which I wasn't sure if he was actually making or was like almost being ready to make, but it's an argument I've sort of thought about, or like making the position positive assertion that you need a certain metaphysical complexity, and that this fetishization of Occam's razor to the point where it's like it has to be material reductionism and it has to be bottom up and it has to be this, that, and the other, is ending up actually being more complicated metaphysically than the alternative, which is like the one that's basically mine, that people say is basically wrong for being too simple. It's like, is that a bad thing?
Well, it sounds like people are trying to say this is the exact Polaroid moment within time, within this particular parameter of this particular thing. It's like, well, if it's a wave function, if you have the oscillation and stuff, it's like, all right, it might need to go through some transformations, it might need to interact with some other stuff and things, but
you want to know what time is. That's what you're getting at, right? What's time? Well, what is not time? The way to know what time is to know what's not time, right? So first of all, what's not time, and where does time arise? And it's back to this question of, is time the prime mover? And you got to tell me now why time can't possibly be the prime mover. And I was teasing you with the answer earlier. The time is that which allows energy to make transitions. And then you sort of trolled the answer.
Well, I mean, what you just described is literally like, that's basically what Thad did between the hyperbolic figure 8 knot and the hyperbolic figure 8 knot's complement, because the complement is basically everything everywhere it is, and it's like, all right, this
the complement is everywhere it isn't. The complement is everywhere it isn't, correct? Say it. Is that correct? The complement is everywhere where it isn't. Well, what does that map onto? Measurement limit. Can you have the measurement limit be filled? No, it's the limit. Everything but the measurement limit's filled, though. Everything but the tip. Do 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 do.
This is getting very creepy.
We passed creepy quite a while ago, I think.
It's true.
It's funny. Why do you think I was giggling so much in the past when nobody knew what the fuck was going on, and I already knew this was going to happen?
I'm just looking. I feel like I'm going the reverse way through some of like Roger Penrose's like cyclic cosmology. It's like, all right, I'm out here. I zoom in. I feel at times like I've oscillated. It's like, all right, I know more. It's like, no, I don't know anything. But it's like, do I know everything? No, but it's like things, at least perceivably, I know they're becoming clear for at least humanity on an aggregate. I hope.
And you get to be the guy running through town in your underwear, blowing a horn, giving everybody the good news, nervously knocking on doors. Hello, have you heard the good news?
I mean, I have done door-to-door activities.
Sorry, I swear that's the last time I'm going to make that joke. I swear, it's just too irresistible, because the optics of you and I doing that.
Yeah, I'm totally down. I'm totally down. Well, this is the thing. I've been looking. I mean, it's fun to do things, but then again, to be within the groups, it's like I feel human beings work better together. Like, I feel like we accomplish many greater things, because it's like I see all these ideas. I see isn't it the whole thing with like, we want to compete with social media, but you have everybody who's like, do our thing. I'm like, hasn't even Jack Dorsey said, it's like, well, you get the Fediverse. Well, what's that? That would be a method by which you could connect all these people in a way that seems logical. It's like, all right, how do you do that in a way that actually seems logical? Well, everyone still seems to be fighting with one another. It's like, all right, you just would need the couplings to be there and have something to a sufficient level. And it's like, I think it makes it harder when people are just nonstop attacking each other and you just get nonstop drama. It makes it harder for people to play nice.
That's why we'll win, because it's never like that with me, ever. Not to mention I can actually literally make it stop when it's happening, which is kind of awesome. You
This
were
is why
right
my
about that
backstop is
diagram, though.
dueling, but go on.
That would be the thing we would hope would never happen. We know it will, and we'll deal with it when it arises. But you'll see it won't be common because the thing that's more hardcore than dueling is what I did on the T-jump thing. I mean, who could do that?
Well,
That was epic.
I'm gonna need to see this because no, it sounds really fun, and especially it's like, wait, you can actually communicate ideas in a way that's like that makes sense. It's like, all right, you're on an even playing ground. It's like, have at ye.
Can actually make sense. So dueling compared to that is like womp womp. It's like, yeah, I could duel you. I could chop your head off in 2 seconds if that's what you want, but you don't want that because you know, the whole me being a girl thing, it just doesn't play well for anybody. But your diagram, when you put up my diagram there on the thing, it seemed like you understood it, that time is temporary. Why does time have to be temporary, man? Come on, just make the leap. Why can't time be permanent?
Because the stars aren't always going to be there.
Because the time is what makes energy change. Time makes a delta E greater than 0, okay? If time is infinity, what does that make delta E?
Oh, wait, say that again.
Time is infinity. What does that make delta E?
Infinity.
Not allowable. That would be a perpetual motion machine. And a disallowable perpetual motion machine. Because the only allowable perpetual motion machine is around the 0 point energy, okay? Right?
That's very creepy. That's very creepy because on one of the Wolfram live streams, they were trying to figure out something. They kind of started talking about they started talking about category theory, and at one point it's like, well, according to the model, it's like 0 divided by 0 equals 0. And Professor Wolfram is like, that's crazy. And I'm like, what if it was right?
That's one of the lines from the talk. They're like, what if, imagine an alternate universe where Jen's right about everything. I'm like, that's this universe. Sorry. You're actually already in that one. So there's a greater cycle. The point is that there's this larger cycle around space-time that is beyond space-time. And it gives rise to space-time. And it's the space between the bubble galaxies. So all the different, not galaxies, sorry, solar systems. So all the different suns or stars are their own temporal bubbles. And temporal bubbles are nested so that you're not just in one temporal bubble, you're in all the temporal bubbles that have ever sort of bubbled before you. So you can start to approximate them as like a foam in a, like Dubid's material stuff that he loves so much, but ultimately it's not that. That is itself an approximation. The real thing is that they're nested, which is near incomprehensibly complex, right? But a computer could easily simulate those states.
The one thing I remember hearing on Thad's video when he started reading his book the other day that did seem as part of his commentary, which I only heard him kind of say once, it kind of sounded like he said that. And it's like, because it was the one point where it's like, did I hear him just say that? That sounds like an extremely bold claim. And I could hear in his voice, I'm just like, he's a very honest individual, but like, even he is like, I'm saying it. I'm like, power to you, man. It sounds like you might be in agreement.
Wouldn't it be amazing if we could all share this? Because that's sort of why I held back, it's like, I don't want to hog all the glory. I already have enough with just the QMPT. Like, I feel like a king at a banquet that no one showed up to. So it's like, screw this. I'm just going to sabotage myself until I can get my way. And it looks like I can get my way now. So, yeehaw! Thanks
you
to
literally
the
just described every day of my life for probably the past 20 years. Holy crap, it has been 20 years now. Yeah, I shouldn't have been here like 20 years ago this year. Actually, coming up, it's not October yet. Okay, good. Yeah. 4 decisions earlier in life. It's like, oh, I'm riding in this vehicle. Oh, look, my other friend, he's like, ride with me. I got in that car. About 10, 15 minutes later, it was a terrible car accident. We were drag racing. Long story short, basically, after we end up spinning out probably going like 100 or so miles per hour. It's like we ended up hitting the back of a telephone pole. Luckily, it was a Porsche 951, so the engine was mid-mounted, and it absorbed like all the blow. I remember seeing my like 360-pound Greek buddy was pushed up against the ceiling due to like the centrifugal force. But it's like I get out there. It's like I undo my seat buckle. It's like I try to put the window down, get out. It's like, all right, I can't get out. I'm like, he's like, oh, I don't think it matters at this point. He's like, get out of the car. The car is on fire. The car is on fire. There's like smoke coming out from it. So it's like, all right, knock out the window, do a barrel roll on the ground. I run over to my buddy. He's like bleeding out of his ear. I call 911. I shared a phone with my dad. He managed to live. He went into the Marine Corps. And all I know is I saw that A-pillar from that Camaro that I was riding in, that I was going to get back in. And had I been in that car, I would have been instantly decapitated. And that moment in my life, I'm like, well, that is a moment. It's like, I totally should have been dead if not for this one thing.
Are you saying you got a sign that saved your life?
I'm glad I happen to live in this universe, apparently, because I'm still here. Otherwise, it would have been game over. I'm just saying I'm happy to be here at this current time.
Yeah. I like to think that this is actually the funniest of all worlds.
It is pretty entertaining. You can't write the stuff.
But you can hear it.
Yeah, it's entertaining as heck.
So the thing we have to contend with is that there's multiple ways to look at things, and the art of science, or whatever you want to call it, is knowing when to look at things in particular strategic ways. So ultimately, everything is the monad, and that's where it's like GTFO, right? Like that's
people seem very cautious about using it because every time it comes up, even Professor Keaton, even when he just murmurs it, he's just in brief passing because there seems to be a lot of strength here, and I'm just like,
there's a guy who commented on the T-jump thing, and he said something to the effect of people don't want to believe in idealism because it's too magical, and I'm like, well, we're just like anti-magic now. The bigotry of it all.
I don't know. Most of Professor Keating's Into the Impossible podcast start off with Arthur C. Clarke saying, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I'm just like, that draws me in.
I was ragging on Into the Impossible as like, being like, yo, you should just focus on what's possible. But then I was like, maybe I was being too harsh on that, actually. I think I changed
that
my
man
opinion.
hides his power. Professor Keating hides his power level extreme well. Shout out to Professor Keating, the Nick Fury of the fitness community. No, I see what he's doing, and I'm just like, that's so smart. It's so smart. And the shade that even threw it, like Dr. Weinstein as well. At one point, he's like, well, Eric, you're obviously like a self-made man, and you're in love with his creator. And it's just like, I'm like, whoa, you just so as matter of fact, just like threw shade at him right there in the middle of Eliza, and they just keep moving on. It's good-natured banter. I think people want more of that.
Well, let's do it. Let's give them what they want.
All right.
Fuck it, man. Why not? We've got it all. Yeah, so see how it says atemporal? The primordial sheath is atemporal. It's a transcendent atemporal sheath. It's not like this only applies to cosmology. It's like, no, love is atemporal. Yeah. A butt plug is fucking atemporal. Like every fucking thing you've ever just recognized as a thing is atemporal, right? Like we don't recognize temporality. We only pretty much recognize atemporality, and we try to recognize temporality. We get really big problems. But if we can do it correctly, it's wonderful to be in sync with the mind of God. No greater. Achievement. That's why I worry about people like Thad, because it's like, ooh, he's got quite the, I don't want to say weapon, but he's got quite the thing in his mind right now. He's got quite the idea. So yeah, all the other sheaths are temporal. So time is the mover unless you're talking about the monad, the atemporal sheath. Then time is not the mover. So time is always the mover until it's not. And when isn't it? Well, anytime it's something we recognize, it's not. So we have this pretty big contradiction in our perception process that sort of spirals us around the universe. And at the end, we're just like spinning. And the only thing we can kind of keep a lock on is that days are a thing and we're not the same as the people sitting around us.
Is this where the Higgs boson comes in?
No.
Okay.
I told you nothing exists but photons, protons, neutrons, and electrons. Nothing else than that. On that level of causal reality, there's only those four and nothing else. Like there's nothing else. Even if you look at with that thing, it's like there's still only four. Even though he says there's five, like those five are not independent, are they?
Well, I
Like the
mean,
four aren't
you would
independent, the
have the
five aren't
four,
independent.
and then our reality and stuff. We would need we live in a reality where we have a beautiful sun that powers us.
It's about what powers the sun. So the thing that powers the sun is this, and if you can internalize this as how things work, then you can basically have the ability to understand any process, because any process has to abide by this, because this is the minimum metaphysical complexity. And that's basically my argument. So temporality is on the inside of atemporality, and the only thing we can directly measure is temporal, yes, but the only things that we recognize tend to be atemporal. So that we're basically stuck in this dichotomy. So the Platonists were essentially right that that is the manner in which one should stride their understanding of reality, because the sage only sees the monad. So if you're seeing, the concrete only, you're what they call the hylic, right? If you're in a superposition of the monad and the concrete, then you're the next one up. But if you're purely in the monad, you're the sage, right? So those are your three options, really. And they'll have their associated sense, whatever, fixations. Praise the Lord for a wonderful knowledge. Like, I could never come up with that on my own.
Now, the thing is, I look at this, and it's like, all right, that's got a lot of numbers and everything. And then you pull out the superposition card, and I'm just like...
Well, it's all
I mean,
restricted to its own
because I'm trying to look at
right?
how the connection works, and the best I can see, and correct me for how off I am on this, because basically with Thad's thing, he's like, all right, I got space, time, temperature, charge, and mass. It's like, all right, I have these five things, basically kind of what you're saying. It's like, all right, you have
just stop for a second.
You have mass. Oh, go on.
Can you just stop for a second? Okay, what is thermodynamics telling us?
Entropy.
It's telling us about something about microstates. What are microstates?
Because I say, and to be fair to Thad, a lot of what he says is like what the world as we view it basically is some mixture of these things. And basically what you just said, I'm just like, well, you could just separate that mixture out into a different method and it could still work, just because combinatorially it's like, as long as it's equivalent, it just all ends up working out. Just
computational equivalence. That's why I always come back to computational equivalence, right? Because we don't just want computational accuracy. We want the computationally accurate thing, which is in the language that we understand best. We don't want to say simplest, because we want it to truly be something that is adapted to us, not to simplicity. That's when you end up with a pin-headed people who think they can think their way out of a... You don't want to go that direction.
Maximize
what are
mimetic theory.
microstates?
Okay.
Does anybody in the chat know? So we don't have a lot of people watching, but I wish somebody knew what microstates were, because it's super important. But it has to do with k log omega, right? S equals k log omega. You know that?
That's combinators. Yes, yeah, S of k or whatever it's phrased as.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So you understand that the entropy is derivative of the microstates, which are the... Help me out here. Show me you understand something.
No. From what I remember, because I listened to his 100-year things on combinators, but when Dr. Wolfram was going through that, from what I could tell, he's like, combinators make the most sense because then you don't need to deal with variables. However, the thing is, very often combinators work in a method that's hard for human beings to understand, because a lot of times we're like, all right, here are some numbers and everything.
Fuck
where it's like
combinators. Okay. What is the definition of a microstate?
Oh, I don't know. I'll look it up.
People need to learn to just say, I don't know, a lot faster, and I do this too. It's a nervous tick, I think, to just, if you don't know the answer, to start rambling in a different direction. I will also attempt to curtail this behavior, because, yeah, I've definitely done it.
Hold on. All right. Well, bring it up right here. So, all right, blah, 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 microstate, Wikipedia. All right, go. So, all right, a microstate or mini-state, oh, that's cute, is a sovereign state of having a very, oops, wrong definition. Is it statistics? Or did I get it wrong again? Oh, wow.
Entropy. You want to go to statistical thermodynamics or just thermodynamics?
Entropy.
The thermodynamics definition or entropy would be fine.
Oh.
Dude, I would not want to be in the front seat of your brain sometimes.
It's all right. It's a dangerous place. And I don't, you know what? I just go with it.
Endow you with more focus. Like I can help you.
That's why they give me drugs.
Focus. There's ways to build up the virtue of focus. It's not impossible.
All right. The laws of thermodynamics define a group of physical quantities such as temperature, energy.
Microstate. Control F microstate.
Oh. There we go. Oh, the third law. Since entropy approaches a constant value as its temperature approaches absolute zero. At zero temperatures, the system must be in the state with the minimum thermal energy of the ground state. The constant value, not necessarily zero, of entropy at this point is called the residual entropy of the system. Note that with the exception of non-crystalline solids, example glasses, the residual entropy of a system is typically close to zero. However, it reaches zero only when the system has a unique ground state, i.e. the state with the minimum thermal energy, has only one configuration, or microstate. Microstates are used here to describe the probability of a system being in a specific state, as each microstate is assumed to have the same probability of occurring, so macroscopic states with fewer microstates are less probable. In general, entropy is related to the number of possible microstates according to the Boltzmann principle. Oh, S equals, was that?
So can you tell me what a
log
microstate is? You need to
omega.
learn to listen and think and focus on one idea at a time. What's a microstate? Is it clear, or do you need me to explain it? Because I can explain it.
Good. You explain it.
So yeah, just I don't know. Can you tell me? There's no shame in saying that. Or we can look up the definition. But microstate is one of those things where it's like, are we going to trust the Wikipedia definition, or are we going to go with the Jen definition? Because when has Jen ever steered you wrong? I mean, really think about it.
You have a good track
It's hard
record.
to define what a microstate is, but what's a fractal?
It's a dimensional representation of...
How much do you agree with the proposition we was fractals?
I'd say that's correct.
Good, because it is correct. So microstate, fractals, what does that mean? Doesn't that mean that any self-coherent system has to resonate
I just know it's
the
next thing that YouTube is recommending that I look into. I'm like, I'm just like, this is nice, and
so it's the simplest irreducibly complex. It's the irreducible complex quantum. It's the all-in-one. It's the model that encompasses the complexity of the system within a single state, the sum of the microstates. That's the canonical ensemble. I think that's what they call it, but it's been a while since I actually cracked open
the canonical ensemble,
text.
You say?
I do love that term. I got to say, it's like very regal. The thermodynamics stuff is super regal.
This is the okay. No, because I remember Professor Wolfram and one of the gentlemen he worked with, like back when he was like still at Princeton working on physics. Like they haven't been together in like 30 years, but they were talking, and at one point they brought up the grand canonical ensemble and like the micro canonical ensemble, and they were discussing it because I remember I kept going back to those points, and I'm like, I actually get distracted by other shiny things in that video because I'm trying to solve string theory.
All right, so here I'll give you the answer. Okay, so what is the hyperbolic figure 8 not? What's special about it? Thad said it about 80 grillion times.
It's the smallest balanced manifold.
And what's a manifold?
It's a 3D interpretation of...
It's a 3D something. But we aren't actually we're not staying in 3D. We're modeling entanglement, aren't we? We're taking What are we doing topologically? I mean, we're doing things that should never be done.
We're creating
We're
knots
using the
via the
shunya
wave
like some sort
functions
of
and
a
everything.
cheap whore. So how have we, prostituted this concept out now? So R3 has been convolved into itself. Would you say that that's a way to describe it?
Sounds like the hyperbolic figure 8 knot complement. It's kind of
No,
starting
that's
to sound
the knot
okay.
itself. That's the knot itself. Right?
Oh, okay,
That's
okay, okay.
itself. So you start with R3, you tie it up, and then we got to go to the complement. But why are we going to the complement? Why can't we go to the knot? What does the knot represent? The states of the measurement limit. The states of the measurement limit. The states of the measurement limit. Why are they empty? They're fucking empty because they're the monad states. They're always empty. They're the potentiating states. They're the unmoved mover. They don't move. They don't change. They don't have observables, right?
It's the 11th circle.
But every other state has a non-zero probability of penetration because we live in a quantum universe of finite complexity, but infinite states. So that's why it's the complement. It's every state except the limit point, which is excluded, but because of the, what excludes states from other states? Come on.
We're measuring it, but from 3 plus 1, right?
Heisenberg uncertainty principle, basically. The 3 plus 1 is the Heisenberg tied up in the hyperbolic figure 8. They're all the same thing. They're all just self-referential. See, because science is
something I want to be true, but I'm resisting it. This is something
Why? Why? Data Treya
because then I need to accept responsibility for my actions. Oh, damn.
Wow, what a beautiful day. And the color, isn't it just so therapeutic?
The terrifying thing is I think I'm even on record at some points, at least on this internet stuff, of things saying it's like, I can't get the free will without God.
There's degrees of freedom, and I'm working on a diagram for that. It's just been taking me forever because it's so hard to like put all the states in a succinct way, but I do have some diagram coming up.
To put reality into words? Oh no, how dare you.
No, to reconcile this question of, well, it's an ill-posed question, is the, I forgot the name of it again, compatibilism. Compatibilism, that free will and determinism are compatible, which is like completely ill-phrased because determinism is precluded by uncertainty, right?
It's a bad framing. It's a bad framing.
Determinism is precluded by uncertainty, right?
Right.
So why does
That's
it matter
literally all
if
you
anything?
need.
Why does it matter if anything is compatible with something that we know is not possible, is not compatible with reality?
Good argument.
Sorry for putting you on the spot there.
No. I mean, again, it explains a lot. And you sit there and you're like,
there's actually a double. There's like a double problem because free will is also ill-posed, as Sam Harris pointed out, right? Like they're both completely.
All I know is if you actually model it out, I'm just like, very often it's like you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but you can get a pretty good idea.
Completely irrational precept.
It's a beautiful thing because then things work out. Absolutely, we started here, we looped around, we literally just came full circle, and it's like, we just happen to have much better tools, and like people are connected, we can actually collaborate. And
but you see still that the true thing is beyond all those things, right? That there's something even more.
I don't know what I'm seeing right now. It's just.
Well, something had to give rise to the laws of physics because the Heisenberg uncertainty principle isn't independent from the measurement limit. It's all circular. So there's got to be some even more fundamental principle, right? And then it's like, do we have access to it as humans? It's like, I don't know, but let's find out.
I just think even if you go down to like the Planck level, in theory, if you had the ability to do this, if you're trying to measure, if supposedly the hyperbolic figure 8 knot was part of like the lattice of like reality itself, or at least our operational reality as we know it, it's like even if you're trying to measure, it's like, all right, it goes in and out on itself. How do you measure the inside? You're only doing this. I'm like, you need to go beyond. It's like what you can actually do, but it's like, no, that's. You ain't going further than that.
The hyperbolic figure 8, every single state is in the complement. Every single allowable state is in the complement. So everything is it plus its complement, right? The complement.
I mean, that's what it is. That's what it is.
The thing is disallowed. The thing is disallowed, which residuates its complement only, which is your range of allowable microstates, which is telling you what? These things permeate all of those microstates. The base substance of reality is permeating all the possibilities, because the thing which maps out all those possibilities predicts what? Every possible observable that is fixed. Light speed, the Boltzmann constant. I mean, Thad can fill people in on this. In a lot of ways, thank God for that.
It's,
right?
I mean, no.
He did
And
so
this is
much work that now I don't have to work. I don't have to do that. Now I can just come in and be like, hey, you know, this enormously complicated simulation, you can get the exact same topology with the periodic table. Did you notice that in the one diagram, how like it looked exactly just like
no. That's why, like, when I got to like one of his lectures, and I see this, I'm like, I've been beaten over the head with this before. Cause like I see these things, I'm just going back to like Stick Battle, where it's like they're summoning like the super beast, like the red stick that like murders everything. It was one of my favorite songs growing up. And it's like, all right, what are they using? They're using like a pentagram. It looks like a summoning circle for like something from Naruto or something. And it's like, okay, I understand what it's saying. It's like I see this, and it's mapping on, and it's mapping on, and it's mapping on as articulation. Oh, whoever did your entangled photon to help create like life as we know it in God's universe, it's like could maybe you let Thad know, because he was looking to put together like a 15-minute video to try to explain this, just because it's like this is a lot, and I think it's important, and especially when you start to go through the different scales and everything. I'm just like,
well, that's why you need God, right? Because it's like, wow, this stuff is pretty dang intimidating. So it's like, okay, good, I got God on my side. I can fit God in my pocket because it's the quantum periodic table. That's micro God. It's never too far away.
But by definition, I mean, isn't that what God is? The one?
That is the micro God. Remember the question about, is the fractal generator the same as the fractal? God's the fractal. That's the fractal generator. So that's why I say it's micro God. It's Saguna Brahman. This is also Nirguna Brahman. So one is with attributes, without attributes. So this one obviously has attributes, right?
Would it be offensive if I put what you just said there to let it go?
Let what go?
Oh, let it go. It's a Disney hit song from the movie Elsa. I've never watched the movie, but I love the song. Let it go, let it go.
Yeah, somebody else said that in the chat, that these would be good lyrics for. Yeah, feel free. I'd love to have that happen. I like art. I'm a big supporter of the arts. We've been talking for about an hour, so maybe we should wrap it up, because this is probably one of my better discourses on time, but I don't know how many more ways I can present it. But hopefully I can explore those same metaphors many times over until there's at least some semblance of coherence. But
I'm just again, it's like, all right, you're saying it's like, all right, you got electromagnetism, you got the effects of gravity, you get the observations that we've seen, just because as far as I understand it, again, I may not have a degree in physics, but I'm just like, if we're saying these things are the case, might it be the case that the things we're seeing are in a way that logically makes sense, as far as I've seen, is logically consistent with our observations, and then when you actually see the way how like galaxies are kind of connected by like whatever cosmic strings we're identifying them as, I'm just like, well, this just seems like the combination of all the oscillations and then whatever matter might kind of be around there. I'm just like, it seems to make sense. The thing that keeps me off, I'm like, it seems too simple. Again, you need to do all these calculations, but it's like, I'm like, why is it attachment?
Here's the logic of it. This is the logic of your monkey mind. You just got to follow just reasonably. It's like, if it was simple, I would already know the answer because I'm so smart. but that's not correct. We are good at reasoning within our interval of space-temporal decompression, right? We're amazing at it. We can make really good tasting food, but, that's not the same as disentangling causality, is it? But you could see how we'd get that impression because Dunning-Kruger were just like, "Damn, I'm smart. I'm smarter than a cow. I must be smart." It's like, that is not the conclusion to draw from that observation if you actually were smart.
That tends to be relative.
So, that's actually an illustration of why people are told not to pursue yogic type stuff until they've really exhausted their other desires. Because you're going to be just distracted by, I really want that Corvette or something, right? There was a
Ooh,
good
shiny.
question in the chat from Moz: coincidence or plan on a percentage slider. So I really don't understand at all, but to me, the term coincidence is sort of ill phrased. It's unclear what that word even means. It's like,
I
was
think
there a plan?
he's basically, because I've talked with
Destiny?
Moz before, and it's just like he might not have studied like all these things and everything. And it's like all right. It's like, but some of the conversations I had with him, I think he's trying to say it's kind of like a synchronicity or something like that.
Sure. I was actually just going to say, what the way that I would phrase what I think you're asking is, the more self-control you have, the better of a receiver you are for the signals of the universe. So
No, you're connecting other neurons about other things I've thought about. Continue.
the question is, what does that look like at the limit point? And the answer is something called manifest destiny, where you just see all the states there in potentia because your imagination has been trained to do that. And then there is really no separation, right? Because you've internalized the fact that separations are synthetic. You have no belief precluding whatever. If
So
it's
what
there,
you're saying
it's
is you
yours.
become Neo.
Oh, yeah. Well, Neo is a little bitch compared to what I can do, but sure, Neo. Yes, if that's what people are, that's what people are comfortable with. But yeah, the synchronicity thing, what is that? That's the top resonance is unique in some sense because it's the all state, right? So there's a uniqueness to the all states. So there's one all state, and then with the diagram before the monad, there's these sheaths around it. So the people in the proximal sheath are subject to more coherent entanglement, which means the information can pass in multiple vectors than usual, which gives rise to what you're describing as synchronicity of oh, there was a plan or a destiny or something. It's actually just the effect of you're clarifying yourself as a measurement device. That's why getting deja vu is just considered good luck generically, because it means that you have paraconscious capacities. Because all you're really ultimately doing is going back to a state of non-dualism from a dualistic perspective, because being alive is dualistic. Return to dualism, you get sort of a double bliss because the universe is. It's probably hard to believe that an impersonal universe can be benevolent, but it essentially is just a consequence of the fact that we sense things and we want to feel good, I guess. The universe is really just our fishbowl. That's kind of what you were saying, or you were like, I have to be a good person now, or whatever you were saying before.
What I'm hearing is just keep swimming, just keep swimming. God, Professor Peterson was totally on it with the Disney metaphors.
Well, realize that everybody has their own personal destiny, and that some people are meant to be in the cloudy, shallow end of the ocean, no deeper than a spider's piss puddle, swimming in circles, with
it's still a totality
of
everything. That's the thing,
their
folks.
dharma.
Well, the thing is, you still need to acknowledge. It's like, well, if everyone affects everything, it's like, all right, there's levels of entanglement to different degrees. It's like, this is why I say you never know where a good idea may come from and stuff. Oh, this person
Well,
they were viewed as
that's the thing you can know. They all come from God. And to think different, that's where the problems start. These aren't my ideas. They're God's ideas, and I'm just lucky enough to be able to discover them. And it's not a coincidence that I feel that way.
My mind is full.
Could a frog in a well be a god in his own mind? What a question, Maz. What a question. At least we're staying within this universe. I gotta say, like, as soon as somebody says, "Oh, imagine a universe," I'm just thinking to myself, like, if you can't imagine this universe, you definitely can't imagine other universes. So what in the heck are you smoking to think that you can? Jeez, what's going on?
All right, now since we broke temporal reality, I don't know anything. Oh no, why is it always spiders? Dude, I totally filmed a spider earlier. Like, I just
It's
watched
a
a fly
line
go into
from
the.
Red Dwarf. It's Red
Oh,
Dwarf. Red Dwarf is one of the funniest book series I've ever
I
read.
hear such good things about it. I feel like I watched the anime or the cartoon or whatever it was. I don't think I watched enough episodes. I don't think I actually watched it. I think I looked at it once, and I think I
It's
was
not
playing World of
anime, man.
Warcraft.
It's a satire show.
I think it was during my wild days, and I just never got
Someone
into
said
it.
I had British humor. You don't think that's true, do you? Say it ain't so.
Not exactly, but I mean there are hints of Monty Python there because I happen to like Monty Python, but it's like would that be your primary thing? No, it's like
As far as I go,
it's
as Red
they're a
Dwarf, I'm sorry.
combination between like a kindergarten teacher and like I don't know, like an internet shitlord in some ways. I apologize for my French. My apologies to the French. It's like it's somewhere on that scale, and it's just like, do I know where it is? No, it's at a superposition. I can't tell how it's going to play out, but I realize it's going to be following a function.
This is gonna be fun, man. This is gonna be so much fun. I'll get some diagrams and we can start making diagrams and doing the logic school. Arval wants to call it Pure Academy, but I was thinking Master Castle. Your thoughts?
I like the castle because Professor Wolf, like what he says is that you need to build a tower, and that tower of knowledge is like you want to make sure. Like I'm like the way he's describing it and what he's been trying to do with like Mathematica and Wolfram Alpha. I'm like, you're building the best. What he's trying to do and everything. I understand. It's like you already have a product. To necessarily do the product better, it's like, all right, you have your steel castle. Let's build the crystal castle. How do we actually do the crystal castle? It's like, well, if you can get down to the most base components and you build from there, you can build a pretty tall castle and it's going to be pretty strong because, well, if that's the maximum we can get, it's like it takes a lot of work, but I think we can better align incentive functions and stuff like that, and I think we can do a lot.
Thanks for having me on the show, man. That was awesome, and hopefully you'll stop into we can review tomorrow. We can.
Cool. All right. Hey, thank you all for watching.
We can proceed to not make David laugh again.
Well, we'll see. There's always hope. That's
This
one of
is
my goals
fucking
someday.
awesome, though. And thanks to
Peace
the
out,
audience
everybody.
for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoy this cutting edge stuff and that you've learned something from this because I thought it was a pretty good one.
You
Thanks
just
for
gotta
having me.
remember, the internet